The United States has gotten involved in the conflict between Israel and Iran. President Trump says the U.S. military struck 3 sites in Iran.
It happened in the dead of night. Without warning, the sky above Iran lit up as U.S. bunker-busting missiles tore through some of the most heavily fortified nuclear sites in the world. Natanz obliterated, Isfahan silent, Fordow cracked open like a secret long kept. And just like that, the world changed. But the question echoing through every capital, every command center, and every American home is this: why now? Why did the United States decide to strike at this very moment on the brink of another war, with an election around the corner and the Middle East already on fire? Was it about stopping a nuclear threat? Was it a show of power, or something more political, more personal? Today, we peel back the layers of strategy, fear, history, and ambition to uncover the real reason the US just launched one of the most daring and dangerous attacks of the decade. Because this wasn't just an airstrike, it was a message. The only question is, who was it really meant for? Stay with us. What you're about to learn might change how you see everything. The lead up to the US airstrikes on Iran wasn't a sudden decision. It was the result of weeks, if not months, of growing tension and high-stakes intelligence. According to multiple sources, US defense officials had been closely monitoring unusual activity at several of Iran's nuclear facilities. Satellite images and intercepted communications reportedly suggested that uranium enrichment efforts were accelerating at a pace that raised alarms in Washington and beyond. At the same time, American bases across the Middle East had seen a rise in drone threats and rocket attacks, many believed to be backed by Iran's proxy networks in Iran, Syria, and Lebanon. While Iran denied direct involvement, US intelligence painted a different picture, one that hinted at an increasing threat to American personnel and allies in the region. Israel, already engaged in its own escalating conflict with Iranian-backed groups, publicly and privately urged the US to take a stronger stand. Behind closed doors, diplomatic conversations intensified. What was once a policy of containment seemed on the verge of giving way to direct action. Then came the final spark. A classified intelligence briefing reportedly presented to top US officials warned of an imminent threat involving nuclear weapons infrastructure, combined with signals intelligence suggesting strategic Iranian military coordination. Whether that threat was real, exaggerated, or misunderstood remains the subject of intense debate. But for the US administration, the risk of inaction appeared greater than the cost of a strike. And so, the decision was made not to wait. The missiles launched in the early hours didn't just hit steel and concrete, they hit the center of a long simmering regional and global power struggle. Understanding the timing of the US strike on Iran requires looking beyond the battlefield and into the broader strategic landscape. Diplomatically, nuclear talks between Iran and Western nations had recently stalled. Multiple international efforts to restart dialogue had collapsed, leaving little room for negotiation and a growing vacuum of trust. Some analysts believe the strike may have been timed to break this deadlock, not through words, but through action. There were also shifting dynamics in the region. Tensions between Iran and neighboring Gulf countries were reaching critical levels. Saudi Arabia and the UAE had both raised concerns about Iran's growing influence, and regional military drills signaled that a larger confrontation might be looming. For the US, delaying any farther could risk letting allies feel abandoned, or worse, unprotected. Another important factor may have been the global stage itself, with world leaders preparing for upcoming international summits, including defense and energy forums. Taking decisive action now could reshape alliances and influence how much leverage the US brings to the table in future negotiations. On the home front, recent cyber attacks and internal security concerns may have also pressured leaders to project strength abroad. In a time when trust in institutions is fragile, showing firm military control can often be seen, rightly or wrongly, as a demonstration of stability. Finally, the decision may have been informed by simple readiness, intelligence gathering, logistics, target identification, all required time. And once the conditions aligned, the window for a high-impact operation may have been too narrow to wait. In essence, the timing wasn't just tactical, it was geopolitical, diplomatic, and psychological. It wasn't just a question of how to strike, but when the world would be forced to pay attention. The US didn't strike just anywhere, it hit Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan, Iran's most sensitive and fortified nuclear facilities. Natanz is central to Iran's nuclear ambitions. Fordow is buried deep underground, specifically designed to survive attacks. Isfahan houses critical fuel processing infrastructure. By targeting these locations, the UAS aimed to disrupt Iran's nuclear progress, send a clear warning, and demonstrate military precision. Each hit was carefully calculated, for the US airstrikes on Iran have sparked a wave of legal and ethical debate both at home and abroad. Critics argue the president did not seek congressional approval, raising serious questions about the violation of the War Powers Act, which limits a president's ability to launch military action without notifying Congress. Supporters claim the strikes were justified under existing emergency powers, citing national security and the need to act swiftly on classified intelligence. Legally, it's a gray area, no formal declaration of war, yet clear use of lethal force. Ethically, it's even more complicated. Some argue the attacks may have escalated conflict rather than prevented it. Others worry it sets a dangerous precedent, one where future leaders could bypass public debate and oversight. Was it a bold move to protect global security, or a risky action taken without full accountability? That debate is just beginning. The US strike on Iran's nuclear sites has triggered major global reactions. Middle Eastern allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia supported the move, while Iran's neighbors warned of rising instability. Europe expressed concern over the breakdown of diplomacy, fearing wider conflict. Russia and China condemned the attack, calling it reckless and provocative. Oil prices spiked, markets grew volatile, and fears of broader war began to spread. What began as a military operation is now a global flashpoint, with consequences far beyond the battlefield. Was the US strike on Iran purely about stopping nuclear development, or was it meant to send a message? Strategically, the attack disrupted key parts of Iran's nuclear infrastructure, but symbolically, it showcased America's military reach and willingness to act alone, even without international approval. Some believe it was a calculated move to shift regional power dynamics. Others see it as political posturing during a tense election year. In truth, it may be both, a show of force with deeper meaning beneath every missile. What just happened isn't just about missiles or military targets. It's about power, timing, and the direction the world is heading. Was this a necessary strike to prevent a greater threat? Let us know in the comments. We read every one. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.